All right, dudes. Thanksgiving week here on episode 69 of the Spicer Speaking podcast. As prefaced at the onset of this episode, we welcome an old friend back to these airwaves, or for those watching on the YouTube channel, the video waves, if that's even a word. He is the proprietor, publisher, editor, writer, contributor, all things Golf News Net, which you can find online at thegolfnewsnet.com. Welcome, Ryan Ballengee, back to the program. Hello, Ryan. Haven't seen you for a while.
Hey Judd, how's it going?
It's going pretty well, thank you. I opened with a reference to Thanksgiving. What do you and yours do for Thanksgiving?
So my wife and I, we usually alternate years between our families. So her family's in Western Pennsylvania near Pittsburgh and Latrobe, actually. And my family's not too far from me, but 45 minutes away in the DC area. Closer, they live closer to Baltimore. So this year it's the year to go to my family. So we'll be there Thursday morning, eating food and watching football, and that'll be about it.
Well, enjoy watching the Vikings beat the Patriots. When you say making food, are you a contributor in the kitchen for Thanksgiving?
I like to. I have typically been shut out of that by my parents, who have probably created my work ethic because they love doing work. So they love doing the work of Thanksgiving. And I actually said this to my wife about a month ago. I was like, we've never cooked Thanksgiving, and we're 40-year-old people. At some point, we have to learn how to do this.
So you just sit there with some chestnuts and an old fashioned and watch the Lions?
Well, yeah, I mean, I like to help make like the stuff they'll let me make, like mashed potatoes or a casserole, or let me open up the jar of the cranberry sauce and cut it into strips. Like the pedestrian tasks they will let me do instead of the real heavy duty stuff.
I was going to say that those are the lowest level Thanksgiving
But
jobs,
then at
really.
least it feels like I've helped and I've done something.
It's like, what's the next big task? Open a can of soda for your children? That's pretty much
And,
what.
and they probably will ask for that. They'll ask me to get them water or some other drink. So uh, I'm really not doing a whole lot here. Just trying to act like I am.
You referenced your residence on the, I guess, right side, the opposite side of the country from where I am here in Southern California. Not golf prime time for you as we enter the winter months. Ryan is a fine player, as an avid player, as someone who writes about and covers golf for a living. What do you do in these winter months, man? You just swing a wedge in the living room?
Well, we could play 12 months a year here with an asterisk if the weather is above your threshold that day. And so mine used to be probably 40 degrees, then it crept up to like 45 degrees, and now it's more like if we get near 50, that'd be great. But I'll take 45 on the right day if it's not too windy. The interesting thing about where we live here in this part of Maryland is that it's not really ever windy during the months you want it to be windy, and it's windy during the months you don't want it to be windy, which is now. So the two things you have to look out for are, is it windy and is it at least above 45 degrees? And if those two things happen, I'm willing to play golf. I can get dressed up, I can get warm gear. That's no problem. But typically I play maybe once a week at most, and that might be 9 holes this time of year. So it's a lot of just looking out the window and wishing it would be spring.
Per that wind, good thing you've got that low ball flight.
Yeah, you know me, the low ball hitter that I am. It doesn't make it my friend, but the good thing is, having been at this club that I played at Argyle Country Club for 11, 12 years now, it made me learn at least how to try to hit it low. Doesn't always succeed, but at least I can hit it lower, and that's good enough.
Yeah, well, you can do more than just that. For those unadorned, and I mentioned this on this program, no shortage of times, and most golf writers are kind of like me, 11.4 handicap, can knock it around. But Ryan is actually a real golfer. He is, I think I might count you of all the media types, the golf writer types played with over the years. You're probably number two on that totem. Are you still that good? We haven't played together in I think 3 years, maybe.
Yeah, I'll take it. I've been playing some good golf this year. Not the last couple of weeks, not the best golf, but I'm playing pretty well, and I take some element of pride in being a decent golfer, but not too much.
Very, very modest. I'm going to ask you, Ryan Ballengee, to be less modest because I kind of I buried the lead a little bit. I buried the headline. We've got something particularly fun to talk about. You've had a lot of great success with Golf News Net over the years, looking to extend that reach and success with a new endeavor. It's been a long time coming. Golf News Net Radio. I think it's something that you've been working on, I believe, for the iHeart Radio channel for maybe 18 months, somewhere in that realm. Please correct me if I'm
About a
wrong
year.
on that. And please illuminate the Spicer Speaking Podcast listeners about Golf News Net Radio, when it's going to debut, boilerplate, the nuts and bolts. Where are we at?
So about 18 months ago, I guess I approached iHeart with this crazy idea of wanting to start a 24/7 golf talk channel that could be available through their digital means, and they said yes, we love that. And then it took 6 months to get them to agree to sign a contract. And that's just kind of the way things move working with the biggest radio company in the world, right? So understandably, and we signed an agreement, 3-year agreement last October, and it was built to me that this would be a pretty quick setup, that I could use an online provider, cost a couple $100 a month. We could really do everything that I wanted to do with the station, which is a mixture of live programming and tape programming, have ads inserted so we can, run this like a business instead of like NPR, and do what I had set out to do. Well, it didn't turn out that way. And a year and thousands of dollars later, we now have the setup that we need and the partners that we need, which is great. So at the end of October, we got everything certified by our streaming partner, that the world could hear what I was playing out of these computers that are sitting in front of me, that manage our automation software, our live stream, and all that together. So just kind of did a very quiet soft launch at the end of October. And then we just recently started putting the player that we have it through our friends at TuneIn. The stations are live on TuneIn right now.
Okay.
That's on the website at golfnewsnet.com. You can also check it out on TuneIn. Just type in or search for Golf News Net Radio, and you can find it and favorite the station there. It's the same stream that's going to run on the iHeart platforms. Just as soon as it gets up there, that'll be on iHeart's website, their app. You can listen in your car just like you can with TuneIn. If you have Android Auto or Apple CarPlay or just a Bluetooth connection, any of those things work. And then you can listen on your smart speakers. Whatever command you have to say, just say play Golf News Net Radio on TuneIn or play Golf News Net Radio on iHeart. Either will work. And we'll ramp up programming over the course of the next 6 weeks here. Going to start experimenting with live shows, which is kind of fun. We'll see if that's a disaster or not. And then live shows with our remote hosts. So we're going to have a handful of hosts doing 1 hour programming each weekday from Monday through Friday, and they have 1 hour live. So we got to get figured out how we get them hooked up through our board here. We'll be using Skype to connect those calls if we want to get into the nitty gritty, and figuring all of that out. So the last couple of months, or this last few weeks and the next couple of months, are going to be learning how to operate a radio station, which is something I've never done before, but apparently decided I could do.
It's a bold endeavor, and one that I've no doubt you can surely pull off with the success. And I think that my reason for thinking that, I'm not just blowing you up because we're friends and because we've worked together, but you've always had a unique voice, I feel, in the golf world. Something, Ryan, that you posted, I don't think rhetorically, maybe it's some months back as this was starting to ramp up. I think you posted this on Twitter, kind of asking folks for content, and not ideas, but just to get maybe some scope or a little bit more of a lens of what people are interested in. And I preface all that to ask you, there's a lot of content out there. I've learned that with this endeavor. So in the audio space, there are no shortage of options. But what niche would you like to carve out with this that is different than a lot of the golf content that is available out there now?
It's a great question, and I think my response is that it's anti-niche, I suppose, and that's the effort I want to have put forth with Golf News Net Radio in particular. Is there has been so much specialization, and it's great. People come up with the things that they love and they're passionate about, and they get into it at a really deep level. and that makes for very good content oftentimes, and sometimes it doesn't, but oftentimes it does. And that makes a universe of golf content that takes a niche sport and makes it even smaller. And I think that is very difficult to present to the world, um, as a unified front, if that makes sense. So my
Sure.
hope with Golf Newsnet Radio is to take a lot of that content and bring it into a central location, because there are a lot of different topics and voices that make golf interesting or talking about golf interesting. But not everyone loves every single thing about the game or every single topic area. So my hope is to be able to present our audience with different perspectives, different opinions, different topics, to be as much entertainment as information, to be instructional, and that at the same time making people aware of maybe stuff in golf they didn't know about, or something that they could even fall further in love with golf over. That's my hope with Golf Newsnet Radio. And frankly, that's kind of the message that's always been about Golf Newsnet, which is the tagline is everything you need to know about golf. And my long held belief has been that if I can deliver people the content and information that they need while keeping them at least mildly entertained, they're going to come back for more, because I'm not going to waste their time. I'm not going to give them clickbait or fluff or stuff that they're not interested in. And frankly, that I'm not interested in. I am a consumer of this stuff just as much as the other person on the other side of the screen. And so I don't want to waste people's time. I want to give them what they want and move on with life. And hopefully they'll enjoy their experience enough to come back, whether that's audio, whether that's video, whether that's written stuff, social, whatever it is. But that's always been my goal.
Friends, hopefully you're getting what you want tuning into episode 69 of the Spicer Speaking podcast. Ryan Ballengee, proprietor and publisher of Golf Newsnet, is my guest. You can find him online along with what we just discussed about Golf Newsnet Radio. That's thegolfnewsnet.com. This interview, as with all interviews, is brought to you by Healthy Learning. You check out their vast library of health, fitness, nutrition, books, and DVDs at healthylearning.com. Let's get into the golf season a little bit, Ryan. Of course, we're in the some would call the silly season, the down season. It's almost the best time to look at what is ahead. Go through the respective tours, but briefly, if we touch upon at least, I think, three of them. Ladies first, of course. Before we started recording, I shared some of my lament that our longtime desert home of an LPGA major is now gone, but to be replaced. We'll get into that in a moment. The Chevron, what it's now called, departed to Houston. That aside, the LPGA is going to be playing for a record purse as they endeavor their next season. Broadly stated, do you feel that LPGA is in a good place heading into 2023?
I mean, they're definitely in a better place than they were a few years ago, particularly in the financial side. You can't deny that. I mean, the partnerships with the major championship sponsors, and also throw in CME Group as well for the season long sponsorship and the year end event. You've got Chevron, you've got ProMedica as the presenting sponsor of the U.S. Women's Open. You've got KPMG behind the Women's PGA, Amundi behind the Evian, AIG behind the Women's Open. Those 6 tournaments, the 5 majors plus the CME Group Tour Championship, represent more than half of the $100 million that the LPGA is going to play for next year, which is the first time they've ever been in 9 figures for a total purse for a season, which is incredible. So on one hand, they've got some really powerful sponsors that are kind of in a bit of an arms race right now with each other to create these opportunities for the LPGA, which are great. On the other half of the schedule, that means you have 27 events basically that are worth $50 million between them. And that's a little bit more probably the longer term struggle for the LPGA, which is trying to get new sponsors in the door. And they've done that a little bit this year with the upcoming schedule. They've got some events that have elevated in purse from, maybe $2 million, $1.5 million to $3 million, which is great. One of those came at the expense of turning 2 tournaments into one, however. And then you've got other tournaments that have been around forever on the LPGA schedule, and they're tremendously supported in the communities in which they play. And the struggle is to go to those sponsors and say, but would you give us $500,000 more for a purse, $1 million more for a purse? And that that's proving difficult. And a lot of tournaments did increase their purse for next year by $100,000, $250,000, and that's good. That all adds up, of course. But I think that's going to be a longer term struggle for the LPGA, just like it was 15, 17 years ago when Ty
Yep.
Botal was the commissioner, and they had 45 events on the schedule, but a lot of those were under $1 million. And Ty Botal thought he would eliminate those events, consolidate the schedule, and in turn create better opportunities for title sponsors to increase prize pool. And it worked for a while until it didn't. And then Carolyn Bivens became the commissioner. The tour went into free fall, and they had to find Mike Wan to save the whole thing. So
Yeah.
I hope history doesn't repeat itself in that regard. But the struggle of the LPGA to continue to grow and bring everybody along is something that's going to present itself again here in 2023 and probably beyond. And hopefully that balancing point that is struck between those sponsors that are bigger, those that have been around longer, the players that are the top players making more money than ever, and the ones that are still struggling to turn a profit at the end of the year.
Pass the baton along to the PGA Tour, which we could spend probably a month's worth of episodes talking about. To keep it broad and perhaps somewhat brief, in that we are soon to, I mean, we're wrapping up the season as it stands, but basically soon to endeavor what could be the weirdest, maybe even most contentious in some respects, PGA Tour season, maybe of our lifetimes. I feel comfortable in saying that. I mean, for example, could look right here in our desert proper for the Amex, first domestic tournament of the year, January 19th to the 22nd. Hudson Swafford, gross. He's won this tournament twice. He is the defending champion, and he ain't going to be here. That's just a small, or right. We'll see you later. Have a great life, man. As we get ready for 2023 and all the strangeness that's going to come, are you worried? Are you hopeful? Are you excited? Is it going to be a total disaster? What are you looking ahead toward the PGA Tour this year?
I really don't know what to expect, and I know it's my job to come up with some kind of expectation or prognostication, but I don't have that. I mean, so many things happened this year that I never would have anticipated happening, and in very short order became a reality, became the new reality of professional golf. I don't know what's next. I could see a wide range of scenarios that happen. I could see the Live Tour shutting down next year. I could see it lasting 5, 10, 20 more years. I could see player defections. I could see none. I could see Live players getting upset that they may have gotten the money, but they're not getting much else. There are a lot of things that could happen, and I don't really know how to place them. So I'm like everybody else, just kind of waiting to see what dominoes precipitate the next ones, and it could go a whole bunch of different ways. So in one sense, I'm anxious about it because the fall was an abject disaster in terms of television viewership for golf. I mean, it just fell between 30 to 40% week to week, and people have kind of had enough. Whether that's because the pandemic is over and their sports are back in full force, that's probably part of it. The other part of it is probably people have watched enough golf. So that's probably part of it. And the other part of it is probably all of this strife between Live and the PGA Tour, the European Tour, or DP World Tour. All that stuff has probably added up and turned some people off. So will we get those folks to come back come the new year? I don't know the answer to that, but my expectation is that with these elevated events, there will be 17 to 20 tournaments that everyone's going to tune into. And the other weeks, there will be not precipitous drop off, but a pretty big drop off from interest.
It is a big problem for the PGA Tour, the also rans, whether it's the course or the lack of star power, or a myriad of other reasons. Let me kind of rephrase even the previous question. What would you like to see? What would please you for the PGA Tour season ahead?
I mean, good quality competition on the course, right? From a selfish perspective, more people are going to pay attention to big time winners. We had a lot of that last year.
Yeah.
We had Scotty Scheffler break through. We had Rory McIlroy win 3 times. We had him take the FedEx Cup. We had Jordan Spieth win. We had Justin Thomas win a major. We had Cam Smith became a great story until he left for Live, and then became a different story. we had a lot of players have big years that even didn't maybe win as much as you would have thought they would have. Between Cam Young and Will Zalatoris, they were breakout stars this year. So Sahith Theegala became a star on the PGA Tour. So there have been, hopefully that continues. Hopefully those guys who developed into something develop further. Hopefully the stars that were showing out last year continue to show out. Hopefully some of the guys that didn't play as well, like a Colin Morikawa, come back and play well. But I think we are getting the top players at the top of the leaderboard more frequently in the last couple of years. So if that continues, I think that's a great message for the PGA Tour product to its fans, that hey, you're going to watch golf, you're going to see a great golfer win. You're not going to see someone maybe you're not as familiar with winning. And that's, by the way, that's not a bad thing. But you got to create new stars. And I think the PGA Tour has to take advantage of this opportunity that they have been fortunate to have with their sponsors to create these events, these enormous purses that deliver a good quality viewing experience in person and on TV for its fans.
Segue to the senior set lastly, in what I personally feel is somewhat selfishly a grand season ahead for PGA Tour champions. Hale Irwin, the all-time leader in wins with 45, and now knocking at the door at 65 years old, showing little, if any, descent in quality of play. Bernhard Langer with 44 wins. To me, this is maybe the most underrated record, not just in golf, Ryan, but in all of sports. And some people might say, well, look, these are old dudes knocking around. Great job, not that many people are watching. They're not them, there'd be a lot of detractors from a statement of that gravity. But for anyone that plays golf avidly and knows what happens to most people's bodies, knows how your bodies change, and for those even remotely aware of the Champions Tour, that every year there's a new batch of 50-year-old guys that are coming after Bernhard Langer. It's amazing that he just keeps winning, that he has kept his body in such unbelievable shape. It doesn't seem like there's any slowdown. I'm now fully of the opinion, yeah, when he was maybe 3 wins behind, was kind of thinking, okay, he's got a good chance. But now that he's just 1 win behind, I'm fully of the opinion he's not simply going to catch Hale Irwin, but that he will surpass Hale Irwin this year. Your thoughts?
That's what I see. I mean, it is pretty remarkable what Bernhard Langer has done. And yeah, it's over 15 years, but over 15 years, that's basically 3 wins a year. And as you mentioned, particularly for golfers at this stage of their career, the drop off is calamitous. Once it starts, it doesn't stop. Father Time wins, and you are just fighting a losing battle, holding it back until you're really not competitive anymore. And somehow Bernhard Langer still is on the right course, the right time. He's not as long as he once was, absolutely, but he's still as accurate. He's pretty decent putter with that long wand.
Yeah.
And he has enough experience that is an edge for him in that category. He knows what it's like to win, probably more than any player out there. In fact, certainly more than any player out there, between not just the PGA Tour champions, but their entire career.
Yeah.
So that is a huge asset for him. And it really is remarkable to watch him do it. And I know, like you said, the champions get a lot of guff on social media because they take up airtime from the PGA Tour and the LPGA Tour. I understand the displeasure with that at times, but it's entertaining golf. It's interesting golf. If you want to see great players, just play a little bit of a different game. And like you said, to be able to be on top of a tour for 15 years, whether that's at 25 years old until you're 40, or whether that's when you're 50 until you're 65, that's still pretty amazing.
The PGA Tour champions, and I learned this back in the Twin Cities, covering what was the 3M Championship, is now the 3M Open on the PGA Tour. But there's such a degree of accessibility for the fan base. All the tension and stress on a PGA Tour event where players, by and large, once they're inside the ropes, they don't want to look at anybody. They don't want to really talk to anybody. I mean, PGA Tour champions, most of these guys are so grateful to still be playing for money, be playing at a high level, have people coming out to pay to watch them, that most of them are extremely accessible. And you can just essentially walk beside them for most of the round that I found. Super excited that we've got the gallery classic coming here to the desert, which is basically replacing our LPGA event. It's the sixth event of the season. Going to be played at Mission Hills Country Club on the Dinah Shore course. Could be perfect timing for Bernhard Langer to grab number 45 or maybe number 46. But for me, Ryan, it's just a story that I'm going to be following as closely, if not closer, on a tournament to tournament basis as we get into 2023.
Yeah, I think there will be some attention on it. And I think his peers think it's inevitable now. I mean, I've talked to a few of them since the 44th win, and they've all said, I mean, what he does is incredible, and that he can still do that. It is not a last hurrah, that there's still a little bit left in him that he can get to at least get to Hale, if not pass him, which, again, I can't underscore enough. Winning 45 times is hard to do. Winning once is hard to do. Winning 45 times is really hard to do. And winning 45 times when you are fighting a losing battle age-wise against all of the players who are coming in front of you. Think about Patrick Harrington. That when Phil was on the Champions Tour, he was mopping up. You've got Steve Alker, who had a completely unremarkable professional career until he turned 50 and has now won $4 million in the last 2 years.
Great
He
story.
has rejuvenated his career. All of those things can happen. And here he is, 65 years old, still the best.
Ryan, hopefully when we're 65, we're still chatting like this and playing golf together on occasion. And maybe I can get a little bit better and keep up with you as I make my own Champions Tour qualifying run in 3 years from now. Happy Thanksgiving week, my friend. So
Same
great
to
to
you.
revisit.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you have a great holiday week with your family, and if there's opportunity for you to get out to the desert, like this beautiful desert willow backdrop behind me here on the YouTube channel, would love to get you out there on those grounds, man. It'd be fun to play again.
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we'll see you soon in person.
Appreciate your time.